Welcome to Real Estate Coaching Radio, starring award-winning real estate coaches and #1 international best-selling authors, Tim and Julie Harris. This is the #1 daily radio show for realtors looking for a no BS, authentic, real-time coaching experience. What's really working in today's market, how to generate more leads, make more money, and have more time for what you love in your life. And now your hosts, Tim and Julie Harris.
3, 2, 1, and we are back. And we are starting a new series this week. Julie Harris, what is the series about?
Yes, well, this is your specific, practical, tactical plan to meet or exceed your goals in your real estate career and ultimately in life in, wait for it, 5 years or less.
So the gist of this week's show is going to be all about helping you goal set, create plans, and then obviously implement those, the execution of those plans to accomplish the goals. Because after all, a goal is a dream with an action plan. But before we get to point number 1, I have actually, I think, 3 cool announcements.
All right, lay it on me.
All right. Well, so a lot of you have been lobbying me after I've sort of been hinting that I'd love to expand the context and the content on this podcast to talk more about different things. And Julie was kind of the holdout for this first topic, and she's finally agreed. Mm-hmm. True story.
Yes, true.
All right, so we're going to be including adding different, I don't know what they'd be called, channels to our main podcast. The first one's going to be about health. Mm-hmm. And a lot of you guys follow us on Instagram as well at Tim and Julie Harris, and so you know Julie and I are really focused on that as well and have been for a long period of time. And you guys ask us questions sometimes about what we're doing. And we're going to start talking about some of the HRT, hormone replacement therapy. We're going to start talking about some of the nutritional things that we've been doing for a long period of time. Because you've been asking, and we haven't really wanted to be that sherry, but we're going to start talking about all those things now.
Since you asked.
That's right.
That's right.
Number 2 is we're going to be talking about investing, not just investing in real estate, though a lot of it will be about that, but investing on a whole. Because really that's something else that once you start building a very profitable, consistently profitable business, you're going to have to know where to put that profit. And you'll be shocked how easy it is to make massive mistakes, and the compounding negative downside, the slide of making one simple mistake when you're starting to build wealth is actually quite incredible. So we're going to share with you what we've learned about that. And the third thing is, and frankly, this is the one I'm most excited about, is we're going to be talking about AI. Julie and I are just absolutely enthralled with what's happening with AI. And Julie's giving me the stink eye, and trust me, I'll curb myself. But the reality of it is that we have not had a technological advancement like this really since, I think, in most of our lifetime since the internet. When the internet rolled around, and the consumer internet in particular in the mid-90s, that's basically similar, but really in a lot of ways AI is going to outpace even the advent of the internet. Internet obviously couldn't have had to happen for AI to happen, but at the end of the day, what we're going to see happen and the pace of change that we're going to be experiencing is just going to be extraordinary. And, Julie and I have been focusing a lot on this, learning more about it. And it's just it's hilarious. I'll find something and I'll say, Julie, let's go ahead and implement this. And this is a great idea. Let's do this because our students will love it. And then like 2 days later, some new version of whatever the idea has been iterated. And it makes the old one that I was going to, spend time in trying to put in place look like, the Stone Age. It's so incredible how fast this technology is evolving. And I think the bent of what we're really focused on is not like everyone seems to have this dystopian vision of the future with AI. It's very fascinating to me, actually, how everyone is assuming that AI is going to result in things somehow turning south for humanity, and we're all basically going to be plugged into the, the matrix and all the rest of it.
All negative stuff.
Even though, if you look back to the dawn of, humanity, technological advancements have never resulted in things getting worse. They've always resulted in things getting better. So there is something innate, and I think most people, that they're just fearful of change, and so they want to sort of paint this dystopian version of the future. But we don't believe that. And all the content we're going to be presenting to you guys with regards to AI is going to, I think, validate what we believe is going to happen. All of our lives are going to get not just a little bit better, but massively better in all meaningful ways.
And very quickly.
And that's the thing that's going to be just almost impossible to keep up. Again, I promise I'm not going to vamp on this too long. Julie's giving me now 2 stink eyes. Mm-hmm. But we're so used to the pace of change. Like if many of you have grown up in seeing the speed of, say, for example, computers, they double every 7 years. And you guys have heard all this before, so I won't bore you. But what we're now realizing, and you're used to compounding, right? You're used to like an interest rate, your money will compound every 12 months. And if you invest this much money every single month, after 20 years, you'll have this single, right? That's how our brains are hardwired to think. But what happens if you have something that grows has exponential growth? What happens if all of a sudden something doesn't just start doubling annually, but doubles in its ability and its capacity weekly, daily, maybe multiple times a day? Like right now, people are celebrating, well, ChatGPT, it's ChatGPT 3, it's ChatGPT 4. We're going to completely forget about what the numerical sequence is soon, because it's just going to be what it is, and it's going to happen so fast. And where it really excites me, just beyond normal levels of excitement, is how it's going to make all of you better, because it's going to make it so that the mundane tasks that many of you never do in the first place are going to be easily delegated. And I'm talking about all your social media, all your YouTube videoing, all your lead generation. For a lot of lead generation stuff is going to be done by AI.
A lot of this stuff you guys avoid all the time. You know it's really important, and yet it persists to be something that you're resisting. This can fill in those gaps. And I think that, to your point, Tim, this is such a big, quick topic. Quick meaning, it's regenerating as we speak. There's probably a new version, and I think we will stop calling it versions because we'll run out quickly.
Yep.
Because it is so vast, I think it's wise that we do a different channel, more of a dedication to that specific topic, because it's not going to be like a 5-part 1-week series and you're done. It's
Right.
going to be ongoing, and there's going to be so many ways that you guys will be able to utilize it. And I appreciate you saying that we're going to keep it positive. How will your lives improve? And how are you going to be able to keep up on this? Part of this is to remove your fear of the unknown.
So what we're going to be doing, and I think the easiest way for Julie and I to sort of work through all this with all of you, is we're going to be taking 3, again, let me bear with me for 60 seconds. So essentially you have ChatGPT, and there's other ChatGPT things that are out there. I think Google's is called Bard and things like that. But let's just, for the sake of explanation, OpenAI created ChatGPT. So what happens is there's now all these APIs. And what APIs are, in essence, are their bridges. They're things that connect software to other bits of software. So there are thousands of companies that are being formed right now. Thousands of companies that are creating using the API that connects their software or their app, right, to ChatGPT. So what we're experiencing now are people are making these widgets. They're called they're called a bunch of different things. Let's just call it, widgets for now. They're creating these things that are going to start using ChatGPT as the backbone. What do I mean? You're going to basically not have to know how to use your CRM anymore. Not that you know how to use it anyway. You're going to go to your chat widget, and your chat widget is going to, or your AI widget is going to interface with all of your technology for you, like the best assistant in the world does, and you won't have to do any of it. That's going to happen for all of you within the next probably 30 days. I'm not making that up, guys. I've seen this. This is all getting evolved right now. Okay, here's another one that's absolutely wackadoo. You're going to be able to start creating tons and tons and tons of YouTube video content that's going to be mostly done by AI. The thumbnail, the video, writing a script for you, doing even the audio and the video. I know it sounds crazy. That's probably 90 days into the future. So all of the things that you've always sort of wanted to do, but maybe you shied away from some of these because it just wasn't you, or the learning curve was too steep. Well, guess what? For the first time in your life, procrastinating has paid off.
Don't tell them that.
Well, it's true. But AI to the rescue, and the AI is going to be something that you're going to be, it's like a super assistant. So what we're going to be doing on this new channel is we're going to be sharing with you the 2 or 3, and there's literally thousands of us of these things for us to pick through, of these apps that we think you should be using and why you should be using them, and how, frankly, it'll help you in your life, in your business, and serve your customer and make money. That's what we're going to be presenting, and that's what we're going to start out by presenting. I think that'll help you guys sort of pace your way into this new world that we're all going to be experiencing, whether you want to or not. There's no unringing that bell. Anyway, let's not talk anymore about this because I can't stop myself. Let's get right into what our specific topic is.
Back to our topic. Okay, so we're going to be, over the course of the week, this is a multi-part podcast series. We're talking about your 5-year plan. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to start on day 1 the second you got your license. Maybe you've been in business for a while, but you want to do a new 5-year plan. Some of these points are going to apply to you. Some of these points are filling in the gaps that maybe you never implemented. So this is really for everyone. Adjust accordingly. So, podcast part 1, we're going to talk about, before we get into our first points, 6 things we don't want for you from day 1 moving forward, and 6 things we do want for you. So, we're going to go through these kind of fast. Point number 1, we don't want you to be burned out, broken, and beholden to other people or companies controlling your success. Don't build your castle on someone else's land. We talk about that all the time on this podcast. Don't wait for someone or something else to spark your success. You must light your own fire. Excuse me, sorry.
I'll do number 2. You can catch your breath. Point number 2, you don't want to suffer cash spurts, lack of profitability, or uncertainty, certainly in cash flow. Uncertainty in this market does not mean uncertainty for your future. Uncertainty in the market does not mean uncertainty for your future.
That's right. Does not mean uncertainty for your future just because there's uncertainty in the market. Your number 1 affirmation is, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. What I mean by that is, just because you talk to prospects sometimes that are sitting on the sidelines because they're uncertain, that is not your job to embrace the uncertainty and say, well, I'm going to wait around too. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. There are people transacting while we're talking on this podcast.
Jules, what was the book you and I listened to over the weekend? How to Get Rich by, what was his last name? You remember?
Felix something?
Felix, yeah. You guys will have, that's all the breadcrumbs we're going to give you. Go to Amazon and listen or read this book. And well, he made a really great point that's salient to Julie's point number 2. Again, go to Amazon, get the book. His first name was Felix. We'll probably remember his last name in 2 seconds. But it's called How to Get Rich. He was a magazine publisher, started a lot of famous magazines. He was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But I love the book, honestly. It's so practical and tactical. There's no woo-woo in it whatsoever, which makes me instantly a fan. But definitely listen to it or read it. And so how does this relate to Julie's point? The most opportunity is always made during the greatest times of change. Who's been telling you guys that forever on this podcast and all of our books and coaching? Julie and I. And this is what we're experiencing right now because of AI. So if you want to know how to make the most amount of money now, just being blunt, you got to embrace with essentially the technology AI, and you're going to have to apply it to what you already do, which is real estate. And when you do those things quicker and at a higher level than, frankly, your competitors, you're going to create opportunities that they're maybe going to figure out a year or 2 from now. But because of the exponential growth that we're all going to be experiencing because of AI, they're not going to be able to catch up with you, and you're going to have an unfair advantage. Julie and I have experienced that only a handful of times in our real estate careers. We're the first ones to offer nationwide REO short sale training. A lot of you guys were originally familiar with Julie and I from that back in 2007. We bought one of the first consumer URLs for our real estate business. We bought timandjulieharris.com back in, I think, 1997. We were one of the first to do that. We were the first in the country to sell over 100 homes our first year in real estate, and all that gave us advantages. There is no advantage that we've ever experienced, or no opportunity in an advantage we've never experienced, like what we're all going to be experiencing together at AI and with AI. And the cool thing is you don't have to be in a geographic location to get the most of it. You can be sitting in front of your computer in the middle of nowhere using your Starlink connection and just have an open mind to basically how you can use this new technology. It is unbelievable, and it goes part and parcel with the book and the point you just read.
Yes, and by the way, did we mention all of that you just talked about is free?
Yeah, free.
That's pretty amazing. Okay, we'll talk more about that, of course, as we keep going. What else don't we want for you? We don't want you, this is point number 3, we don't want you to kill your potential by grinding away with buyers instead of listings. Buyers are physical labor, listings are mental labor. We'll drill down on that in the future points. These are, again, things we don't want for you, setting this up for our points. Point number 4, we don't want you to end the year with little savings and lots of stress. Number 5, we don't want you to follow false prophets, gurus, or fake coaches who have no authority to coach you.
Actually, I got a fun edit for that one. We don't want you to follow false prophets who want to suck away all your profit.
There you go.
You know, gurus, fake coaches who have no authority to coach you. And bottom line, guys, is be very, very careful who you listen to, because if you follow one little, shitty piece of advice, that can put you in a completely different trajectory, and that misdirection compounds over time.
Yes. And it can completely wreck your vision of your own success and of real estate when in fact it wasn't your fault. You just followed the wrong thing.
In other words, you start trying to do something as some fake guru told you to do, and it doesn't work for you, and you assume the fake guru knew what they were talking about, and basically blame the lack of it working on you versus the fact that it was just crappy advice to begin with. Exactly. The world is full of people who want to sell you information on how to get rich who've never gotten rich themselves. Their product is selling people on doing something never actually done. They sell, a whole bunch of guru type stuff on how to get rich, get your mindset together, but they've never actually done anything other than sell the information. I would avoid those people. Those people are what we call charlatans. Those are snake oil salesmen. Only listen to people that have actually done what you want to do. The rest of them are just selling you into this dream, this fantasy. They don't know whether it works or not. They've never actually done it.
Yeah, he made that point in the book too, that there's a difference between dreaming an idea and doing the idea. Anyway, great book. All right, point number 6, we don't want you to have failure to launch syndrome. That applies to some of you listening, not all of you, but getting ready to get started, analysis paralysis, and creative avoidance of work will all make you broke. Now we'll move on to something more positive, 6 things we do want for you. Point number 1, we want you to have a definitive plan to follow so that you will have direction and won't have to guess what to do to succeed at a high level from day 1, or if this is your day, 1001, same point. Point number 2, we want you to have goals in 5 areas of life. Those are family, physical, financial, spiritual, and educational to keep you inspired. Use your real estate treasure map to get serious about those goals. We'll talk about the treasure map in a second. And of course, you'll do a new treasure map each year of your career since both your skills and your goals will be changing.
By the way, you guys can get a free copy of the real estate treasure map by going to premiercoaching.com and enrolling right now in Premier Coaching. And yes, you can enroll now for free. And yes, that does include a daily semi-private coaching call. Go to premiercoaching.com, or if you prefer, you can just text the word Premier to 47372, and we'll text you back a link to the website. Either way gets you to the same result. You can become a member of Premier Coaching. The Real Estate Treasure Map, it was a book years ago, and then we made it into essentially a downloadable PDF that's designed to give you, it's a fill-in-the-blank business plan with not necessarily the best name ever, treasure map. But the reality of it is something all of you should get immediately and complete it. It is your fill-in-the-blank business plan for this year, for every year that follows. So just go to premiercoaching.com or text the word Premier to 47372.
Point number 3, we want you to be a powerful listing agent as early as possible in your career. Listings create more business, both more listings and, of course, buyers. Buyers generally don't, and in fact, it's worse than that because some buyers don't ever actually buy, so they're kind of negative transactions sometimes. Point number 4, we want you to invest in yourself first so that you then can be rich and free. Point number 5, we want you to build strong skills from the beginning. So let's make some assumptions about you, our listeners, so we can show you the math. Assume the following facts, and of course, you can modify for yourself if necessary.
Now, again, we're going to give you, it's very important to listen to what Julie just said. From here forward, we're going to all be operating off this essentially these common assumptions or starting points. You need to adjust accordingly. And if you're listening to this out of sequence, there's going to be people that listen to part 3 and haven't listened to part 1, and they're all going to be confused because we're all going to be leaning back into this math. Just so make sure you memorize this and make sure you know what our common agreements are as we move forward.
Yes, and I would say our example is chosen on purpose. This is a great, goal or example. So assumptions, maybe you live in a state like Florida, Tennessee, or Texas with no state income tax. If that's not you, adjust your math to include your state tax. Your average sale price is $500,000. Now, the average sale price has been bubbling around, I checked this morning, between about $440,000 and $510,000. So $500,000 makes the math a little bit easier. That's why we're doing that. We're assuming you are an EXP agent. We're assuming your average gross commission based on $500,000 is $15,000, that you pay your broker 20%, netting you $12,000 per transaction.
And remember, at EXP, you have a cap of $16,000. So after you've paid in your $16,000 cap, you will be 100% after that. And that also is assumed that, when we're doing the rest of this math. So I'll say that again. At EXP, when you pay in, your cap, which is only $16,000, after that you pay, there's no more additional commission split. Really important that you remember that. This always shocks me. Mm-hmm. Obviously Julie and I are aligned with EXP. It's probably one of the best business decisions we ever made. And if you're interested in joining Julie and I at EXP, we strongly encourage you to just text me directly at 512-758-0206. Or if you'd like, if you want to learn more about EXP, just text the letters EXP to 47372. Text the letters EXP to 47372. But if you've not yet chosen your sponsor and you're looking for a sponsor that I think you'll agree will be very proactive in your success, text me directly at 512-758-0206. And guys, there's every reason in the world right now for you to be moving forward and at least seriously considering EXP, because for many of you, it's going to be the difference between, essentially wealth accumulation that happens at a snail's pace and wealth accumulation that happens like you can't possibly imagine. Because at EXP, you make money from more than just your real estate transactions. There's multiple ways that you get paid. That is what, at the end of the day, you want to be looking for, passive sources of income. So just text the letters EXP to 47372, or you can text me directly if you've not yet chosen a sponsor. Julie and I are formally applying for the job of being your EXP Realty sponsor. New agents, seasoned agents, grizzled agents, big teams, small teams, doesn't matter. Everyone's joining. Text me directly at 512-758-0206. Remember, when texting, message and data rates may apply.
So back to our math, we're going to keep it easy. Let's assume that you're netting about $12,000 per transaction. If you've been in business a while, you can figure out your own actual net and apply the math. But let's say $12,000 net. One transaction per month will gross you then 12 times 12 is $144,000 in your first year of business. Now that might sound like an outrageous goal to some, but we're talking about one transaction per month. So we'll drill down on that. But now we're going to get into the notes of year one. These are some rules. These are some projections for you. Go ahead.
Well, what's interesting, what was it, 2021, I think it was, the average income for the for agents according to NAR, hopefully I'm getting all these numbers right, you probably know better than me, you usually do.
Sometimes.
Was $100,000.
I think that's right.
Yeah, and then in 2022, because of the adjustment that happened about midway through, the income dropped. And I suspect what we're going to see now is the average income for the average agent in the United States this year is probably going to be around $75,000.
Probably. It should go up along with the average appreciation or inflation with homes, naturally.
Right. So listen to what Julie just said. Despite what your local politician might tell you, inflation or appreciation for real estate is a clear and present in every single market.
I have an up-to-date stat on that, as a matter of fact.
Of course she does.
Year over year, we are up 8.1% countrywide. Okay, now at the last half of last year, of course, everybody thought, oh, the world's coming to an end, housing prices will come down. And for a while they did. And I, as you know, am licensed in Texas, so I watched the Austin reports. And I can tell you for about 4 to 6 months, the average sale price in Austin went from $700,000 and fell a couple months in a row to $650,000. And when that happened, it bottomed out for about 3 months. I'm talking about like a 6-month average. And the average days on the market went up for a while. This is when rates went up. This is when we had the holidays. Nobody knew, uncertainty, what was going on with the inflation and all that. So now we are back up, just as was reported. Austin is now back up to, guess what, an average sale price of $700,000. Average days on the market is back down to 30. So if you were an agent selling in Austin, you might have experienced 6 months of an average net commission being a bit less, but now it's back on the ascension.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I just think to your example of the average home in the United States being $500,000.
Yes.
So if someone bought let's say a year ago, they bought that house for $460,000 or $450,000, it's now worth $50,000 more. What would they have paid in an average payment? Even if they bought last year in June, it's say with an interest rate of 7%. I don't know if you can do that in your head. But I bet you if it was let's say they had a $400,000 mortgage, they may have been paying, well, let's just say $40,000 a year all in for a PITI payment, right? Yep. But the house itself appreciated or inflated by the exact same amount, roughly, that they put into the house in terms of PITI.
Sure, possibly even more, because even when rates went up, so say their interest rate, worst case scenario was maybe 6 3/4. Maybe a few people out there had to pay 7. But if your house appreciated by 8%, you're still on the upside, aren't you?
You guys get the point? You're going to have, in this market, you're living for free, basically, because of the inflation of the appreciation on the home. Make sure you're explaining that to your buyers.
And rates are coming down currently, so
exactly.
Keep an eye on that. Okay, year one, point number 1. Your first year goal is 12 transactions. This is absolutely realistic when you follow our specific plan, focusing on building skills and leading with listings. Don't believe anyone who tells you otherwise. Just 1 transaction per month, minimum standard.
Now, obviously, adjust accordingly. If this is not something, it's 12 transactions, it's just nothing for you, adjust accordingly. Right. But the minimum standard you should set for yourself is 12 transactions, no matter what. And again, high sale prices spoils a lot of you. Don't let that happen.
Yeah, that's right. More is okay. And if you're in real estate right now part-time, maybe you adjust down. So know your own numbers and what your own goals are.
That's what the real estate treasure map is all about, helping you figure out all that math.
Exactly. So point number 2, acquire these key skills immediately. All things related to proactive, non-paid for lead generation. Furiously fast lead follow-up using scripts, pre-qualifying, buyers and sellers using scripts, presenting, of course, negotiating, and closing. These are the skills that make all of the difference. And some of you guys have been licensed for multiple years and still don't have like a pre-listing package. Maybe you don't have a formal listing presentation. We even have a buyer presentation in coaching. But most importantly, you must have your pre-listing package, listing presentation, buyer presentation, not just completed, but know how to present them, because it builds your confidence when you use each of those appointment by appointment. Your job is to earn while you learn. Remember that knowledge equals confidence and ignorance equals fear. You are unlikely to be proactive if you know you don't have any of the tools and skills that we just discussed. And I'll tell you, Tim, I had a coaching call with a newer agent last week who had been doing pretty well, kind of doing it on their own way. They'd put together a lot of skills, but they used the pre-listing package for the first time, and they were like blown away that it was such a much easier transaction much easier presentation with a much more predictable outcome. They spent less time at the seller's house. The seller was happy. They were happy. They walked away with a signed listing.
Guys, the pre-listing pack, if you're not, again, proactively lead generating, pre-qualifying, presenting, negotiating, closing, the other elements obviously is prior to the listing appointment, send a pre-listing pack. If necessary, then you do a lot of lead follow-up, but ideally when you make that initial contact, you're setting the appointment right away, so lead follow-up isn't really necessary. Just hopefully I'm not confusing you. Hopefully I'm helping you focus. That's how complicated real estate is. Proactive lead generation, pre-qualifying, presenting, negotiating, and closing. That's really, if you get good at those 5 things, primarily the first one and the second one, you're going to basically be right as rain. You can be terrible at everything else as long as you're really good at being a proactive lead generator and frankly, pre-qualifying, and I'll just add to that, obviously, the presenting. Those 3 things, forget 2, those 3 things are the most important things in real estate. I think all of you can logically see that supersedes the need for anything else. And you can being wildly successful in real estate, have really no real, marketing or branding or any of the rest of it, as long as you know how to proactively lead generate. I realize that some of the younger folks who are trying to convince you that you can brand your way to success are saying it with a lot of conviction. But the reality of it is they don't know any better because they've never done anything else. And even at that, have they even sold real estate at a high level? Make sure you are really, really drilling down and pre-qualifying anyone you're taking advice from, because what you'll quickly discover is what a lot of the folks is they're not actually real estate practitioners. They're in the business of trying to sell you into a shiny object that's going to hopefully, their presentation in essence is, if you do this passive stuff, then you'll no longer have to learn how to do the proactive stuff, which means you can avoid rejection. Ultimately, that's the reason that people find the passive stuff, the marketing and the branding more appealing, is because you fall victim to the great lie. And the great lie is you're going to establish yourself as an expert, and the people are going to call you and automatically do the business with you because you have this massive amount of social media. That's the great lie. Because the real truth is you might get an opportunity at that, but if you don't have the sales skills, an opportunity to earn that business, but if you don't have the sales skills, you're not going to generate it in the first place. You're not going to get the listing contract signed. Be very clear. But the thing is intuitively, you know what I'm saying is true. So trust your intuition, right? I mean, Doesn't it just make sense what I said is true? It does. Now, if you want to do the passive stuff, the marketing, the branding, Julie and I do that for our coaching business, but we did that when we sold real estate, but we knew what order to put things. Proactive lead generation first, because that's always what's going to be duplicatable and predictable and give you consistent profit. Incredibly important that you're very clear about that in your heads.
That's right. So point number 3 will sound a little bit like point number 1, but the point here is to set the expectation for yourself that your revenue will be based on a gross commission income for the year of $144, based on an average sale price of $500,000, gross commission of $15,000, about 20% in fees or expenses once you paid your cap, so your EXP. You're going to make a minimum of $144,000. I looked that up. You do that, you're in the top 10% of people earning in the country.
How about that?
Yeah, with your real estate license. And I mean, honestly, when you do the things and you purify, it's not 100 hours a week.
By
You just
the
have
way,
to do the right things.
It's important you guys listen to what Jules just said, obviously. It's $144,000, and if you're doing it the Harris way, that's pretty close to your gross being your net.
Yes.
In other words, it's not $144,000, but you have to pay all these referral fees, but you had all this marketing and branding expense, but you had all these fancy CRMs, and you had to pay a big Google pay-per-click campaign.
Your cost per lead was $1,000.
None of those conversations should be relevant to any of you as long as you build your business in the right order.
That's right. Point number 4, your listing goal is to have 2 to 3 listings at all times, assuming the average days on the market are about 30 to 60 days, depending on where you're selling. The longer the days on the market, the more active listings you need to count on 1 closing per month. Some of you, when you carry 3 actives at once, will actually generate 2 to 3 closings per month while the market's hot enough for that.
Right. So again, this is worth repeating. You're going to have, 3 listings at all times. Most of you, that's probably a realistic number. You can get 3 listings at all times, guys. I say the word easy or easily, but you will. And then what you'll experience is that, like what Julie just said, on average, you'll have at least one of those listings in contract at all times. That doesn't mean you only have 1 transaction, because it turns out the listing you have in contract, you also sold yourself. Oh, and by the way, the house that you just sold to your own buyer, that seller now has to buy something else.
That's
you guys
right.
get it? So listings create multiple opportunities. Buyers do not. Julie, let's round the bend for today.
Sure.
So guys, listen, we're going to pick up where we left off tomorrow at point number 5. I know we're going through these points relatively quick. You guys can obviously re-listen at any time. You can read the transcript over on YouTube. Thank you for keeping this the number 1 listened to daily podcast for real estate professionals in at least the United States. It is our pleasure and our honor to provide this information for you. I know you guys love this podcast. Like I said, it's the number 1 listened to daily podcast for real estate professionals. National Association of Realtors is calling Julie and I America's number 1 real estate coaches. And all that is because of you guys. But here's the thing. This is nothing compared to what you learn in Premier Coaching. This is merely training, not even training. This is an overview of training. The real coaching happens when you join Premier Coaching. So go to premiercoaching.com, and yes, you can join for free. And yes, that does include a daily semi-private coaching call and access to a whole bunch of content. So just go to premiercoaching.com and join right now. You can click the link if you're following us if you're on YouTube, just click the links that are there. Same thing with iTunes, Spotify, and all the other places that the show is syndicated. In the meanwhile, you guys have a fantastic day. We'll talk with you on the show tomorrow.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.